Hello everyone, my name is Moji. You're watching a Bitcoin Bubble news channel. Bitcoin will stay this size until it reaches at least a quarter to a half the size of gold. It needs more, it needs to be bigger, it needs to have more cash on hand. It's important to remember that the product is still new and will be volatile. Over a long amount of time, it will only go up and down, that's the point. I think that all of these things would change this asset in different ways. A lot of people will quickly learn how strong and valuable Bitcoin is. Our debt to GDP ratio is 130%. We have a lot of power around the world. The gig is up though. Another big slump is something they can't have. They will make more money to get out of it because they can't have it. That's the matter. What's the matter? I mean governments and central banks when I say they. J.Lavish stresses that Bitcoin is still a small asset compared to traditional financial instruments like gold, even though it is becoming more and more famous. Because Bitcoin is so small, the market can be easily manipulated, especially by big hedge funds and major players. As Lavish points out, these groups can take advantage of Bitcoin's popularity and ease of use by joining the market in a planned way to lower prices, especially if they can see positions with leverage on the screen. This kind of market behavior has been seen many times, which adds to Bitcoin's well-known instability. The fact that these hedge funds are trading in Bitcoin shows how important the asset is becoming in the wider financial world. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and turn on post alerts to get more videos like this. You can also watch our other videos about cryptocurrencies and digital assets in general. Please share your thoughts and comments in the part below. For the channel's growth, everything you do is very helpful for the YouTube system. Thanks, and have fun with the movie. It's important to note how small this item is. It's not very big compared to the other things we're talking about. It can move around, and big people make it move around. To help their own book, they can just come in overnight and hammer it down because they can see where all the leverage is. You can see leverage on your screen and choose if you want to try to get rid of it and push it down. It's something we've seen happen many times. So, until Bitcoin gets big enough, things that are at least a quarter to a half the size of gold will keep being this way. It only needs more and to be bigger. It needs to have more cash on hand. Also, this thing trades 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is a chance for buyers to move risky assets over the weekend. They look at this if you're a hedge fund. And we're not talking about small hedge funds. These are 10, 20, or $30 billion hedge funds that are moving around this thing. I've seen them on the 13D files as well. You now know that this thing is being moved around on the weekends. You can see it. These people can buy and sell anything they want in their hedge funds, not just ETFs. It's not like a home office. We just need to be aware that it's still a NASA asset and that it will be unstable. Over a long amount of time, it will only go up and down. That's why we need to keep in mind that Bitcoin doesn't always work. It's not always the most dangerous thing. It's been the tip most of the time, but not always. Therefore, we need to be clear about what the event is that Mike is worried about. Is it just a simple regression into recession? Are all risky investments sold off? Or is it more like what happened last spring? Not this spring, but the spring before, when the banking system crashed and Bitcoin was almost at its worst. A lot of people felt pretty bad about it. Then there was a bank collapse that completely destroyed Silicon Valley Bank, while Bitcoin went up 50%. In other words, what is the main thing we're talking about? Is it? Do you think of it as a simple recession? What is it? Civil unrest? Is it trouble in the banks? Is it the loss of business real estate that caused regional banks to fail? Is there something bigger? Is it like we don't have an election? I mean that I think all of these things would have different effects on this product. People will quickly learn how strong and valuable Bitcoin is when it can work outside of the system that the people who are doing these things can control. That's something that it hasn't reached its value yet. It's not quite at its core worth yet, but there have been signs of it here and there. And that's something else we need to think about. Spend less and let the slump last longer. That is one option. You could either turn on the fire hoses again and start inflating away some of this debt. If we do this, we could leave inflation high for 3 to 5 years, which would raise nominal GDP and help us get through the time until AI really takes off and we have the so-called productivity miracle, or we get a lot more done with a lot less debt. That's the bet. That's kind of what we're thinking. Those are the two options right now. Anyway, I don't think there's any political reason for them to spend money on their voters in order to get the votes. If you think about incentives, Mike, and the way our government is set up, they are incentivized to do that. That's it. What I mean is that the organization is wrong. That's not true, I just don't see any other way to think about it. It's all about getting re-elected, and the only way to do that is to spend money. The truth is that Powell is still under a lot of pressure to lower interest rates. A huge amount of pressure. It costs money. It would show up on your Bloomberg screen. There's a greater than 99% chance that he will cut rates by 25 basis points in September. But I don't have Bloomberg open at the moment. That's the first one. Warren has already talked about it. Several other officials are talking about it. He needs to cut. Cut. As Chair Powell, you need to cut. But the question is whether or not he will have enough weapons to do it. Because once more, we can't go into a deeper session because of what we like. He will find it much easier to plan a soft landing. He could wait a minute and see what happens before making another cut. Who knows, we might not have to make another one until December. I believe he will cut in September, November, and December. And there will be more than a full percentage point of layoffs because of what we talked about at the beginning, the truth of the job market. The number of people without jobs is going up. And that won't just go away on its own. As you can see from history, things move faster when jobs start to disappear. That's the issue. He wants to get ahead of that. And if he can point to that, we don't want to lose too many jobs, so he can point to the number of jobs. We're going to cut because we think the rate is now above the stable level. Okay, that's as no one knows what the average rate is, so he can give any number. He can pick a number out of thin air and say, what is that? Because no one can really figure out that we've seen it. People have a lot of different ideas about where the neutral rate should be. So he can cut if he has enough weapons. I believe he will. After that, you get this that went on. In his writing, Lavish also talks about how Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is under more and more pressure to lower interest rates, which could make inflation even worse. Even though there are risks in the long term, he thinks Powell will probably cut rates in the next few months to help the economy have a soft landing. This situation of ongoing inflation and central bank involvement could be good for Bitcoin in the long run. As more investors look for assets that aren't tied to the standard banking system and won't lose value as quickly because of inflation. Our debt to GDP ratio is 130%. We have a lot of power around the world. The gig is up though. Another big slump is something they can't have. They will make more money to get out of it because they can't have it. That's the matter. The matter is, there is, and by they, I mean the governments and central banks. The money supply will be raised so that we can get through a harder session. There is no argument. We are all becoming Japanese. We are all becoming Japanese. Right on. Well, I think that's what I believe, and I keep talking about it. That's the saying. All roads lead to inflation. Every single one of them leads to inflation. You now understand why. Warren is very against Bitcoin because she wants to go the CBDC way and doesn't see how the two can work together. That's the problem. In the end, some of them are going that way. And until they remember something you said at the start of your speech, they will wait until they understand that the incentive structure is to get re-elected, and until they understand that many people on both sides of the aisle want this. That they'll lose them if they don't agree with it. So they're just going to let it happen. We also can't forget how powerful the Store and BlackRock are. It's because they are very strong that they won't want any strict rules. Now that you can go to what you said about the wallet address being listed, they don't mind because it makes it easier for more people to get the ETF.